our very first keynote of the day, we are starting day 3 with some food for thought. Because sometimes the biggest edge in business isn't sharper strategy, it's sharper character. Our next speaker, our very first one of the day, reminds us that humility and kindness aren't just nice things to have, but they're the competitive advantages in the world of investing. He's a partner at Veris Investment Management, where he oversees both private equity and public market portfolios, and he brings such a wealth of perspective from years on the front lines of strategy and risk. So please welcome our very first keynote speaker of the day on Fuego stage, Steve Kim. There we go.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for showing up so early in the morning. I know I've already heard the stories from the wild parties last night, so I know you guys all had a pretty late night, so appreciate you coming out so early in the morning. My name is Steve Kim. I'm the Chief Investment Officer of Veris Investment Management. We're a single-family office that manages the capital for a branch of the DuPont family. It's the 10th generation of the family, so the family's been around for quite a long time, and we're very, very fortunate in our investment philosophy in that the family thinks of capital from not even from a decades perspective, but from a centuries perspective. So we have a very, very, very long-term horizon for our investment thesis to play out. So that gives us quite a bit of edge, and I think it's rare in the investment world that you're thinking about centuries versus decades. So first question for the audience. Raise your hand if you've spent time thinking about how luck has impacted your success. Okay, that's a pretty good mix, but I'm here to try to change that, and hopefully I'll be able to do that at the end of this presentation so that you can think more about how luck is actually impacting your outcomes. And the first slide here is the reason why we don't think about luck as it impacts our success is this particular bias. It's very, very common. Almost all of us have this bias. It's called egocentric bias. And it allows us to understand our own personal contributions to outcomes, but it blinds us to the contributions of others, and it blinds us to the contributions of external factors that played a very, very large role in the success of our life in general and our success in business and our outcomes in general. So this bias has been studied by There's been numerous studies that have looked at this particular bias. It impacts couples, it impacts teams, whether it's sports teams or work teams. We tend to overemphasize our own contribution and underemphasize the contribution of others and also of external factors that were involved in our success. So this is a very, very common bias that we're all, that impacts all of us. So let's talk about chance and luck. On the left side, you see chance. Well, chance is really the quantitative piece of it. Those of you that really like math, this is the math piece of what happens in outcomes. It's basically the likelihood of something happening. And it's completely based on odds and probabilities and all that math that we all love from our early years. And what's interesting about this is that I've been to the summit twice now, and based on that, I can say that there's 100% chance that it's going to rain during the summit. And I can also say that the chance that I'll have an umbrella when it rains is 0, okay? So that's the math piece of it. It's just really odds and probabilities. The luck piece of it is interesting because what it is, it's the emotional component of it. And it's the component of how you see outcomes. So if the outcomes are favorable to you, then it's going to be considered good luck. If the outcomes are not favorable to you, then you're going to consider it bad luck. So really, luck is, you can think of it as chance plus the consequence, whether you consider it bad or good, and how emotionally you feel about the actual outcome itself. So chance is the math, and luck is your perspective on that outcome, your emotional involvement in how that outcome impacts you. Okay, let's talk about some of the these are kind of obvious, but when you think about them, they're not really obvious, right? So how does chance impact outcomes? And let's talk about some that are, you may have thought about this, and you may not have, because from my perspective, it's not very obvious. Half of your income is decided by where you were born. And we all know that we have no control over where we're born. But half of your income is going to be based on where you actually were born. And this is an interesting one. If you were born in a low GDP country, then you have a really, really low probability of generating high income. So where you were born is very, very important. And towards the end of the presentation here, I'll talk about specifically to Latin America. This other one is another interesting one that we don't really have any control of either. It's when we were born. And this happens, it's most common in sports, but it also impacts education too. So the age you were born, or when you were born, and when you start school have an impact on your potential outcomes in the future. It's very, very prevalent in sports, and I'll talk about it as it relates to hockey. So if you were born, professional hockey players, 40% of them were born in the first quarter. Only 10% of them were born in the fourth quarter. And that's because if you were born early, because of the way hockey leagues are set up, and this is for baseball, all kinds of different sports leagues, because of the date that you enter those leagues, if you were born earlier, you're typically stronger and more physically developed than the other kids that are born later. So you have a distinct advantage based on what calendar date, what month or quarter you were actually born if you want to become a professional athlete. And a lot of us will think, okay, that's great, but that should even out over time, right? Like as the kids get older, as they get more physically mature, the other kids should catch up with those kids. It should, over time, even out, especially if you think about it becoming a professional. That's a long period of time where those benefits should even out for the other individuals that wanted to become professional athletes. But it doesn't. What actually happens is it compounds, because those kids that were born in the first quarter that were bigger and stronger are going to be picked out as the better athletes or the better potential athletes. They're going to get more coaching. They're going to get more playing time. And that's just going to compound over time and over time, and it will give them an edge to becoming a professional athlete. So when you were born makes a big difference in the odds of your success over time. And again, this isn't just sports, but it's education as well. Kids that are older, that start school, are more developed, they're going to be picked out as having higher potential, and they're going to get better teaching or more effort into those kids, and that compounds over time. Okay, so this is really interesting from my perspective, and it'll dovetail into how we think about investing at the family office. So when competition gets really fierce, luck starts playing an outsized role in outcomes. Because think about it. I mean, when competition is fierce, everybody is talented, everybody is hardworking, and everybody has a lot of skill. So what differentiates those people is typically the amount of luck that they receive. So as competition gets greater and greater, luck starts playing a bigger and bigger role in outcomes. And in founder communities, look at the unicorn rate here at 47.9%. So this is a model that was created to look at the impact of skill and luck on outcomes. And it's very, very biased towards skill. So 95%, it's weighted 95% to skill and only 5% for luck. And as you know, the chances of you as a founder founding a billion-dollar company is only around 2%. So the odds are very, very low. And almost every founder that I've ever met, and if you look at founders in general, entrepreneurs in general, they're all extremely hardworking. They're all extremely talented. But only 2% of those founders will ever found a company that is going to have a valuation over $1 billion. It's a very, very small percentage. And that's why in this instance, if you look at that simulation, half of the outcomes are because of luck. And go to the right here and we'll talk about astronauts. So if you think founding a billion-dollar company is hard, it's astronomically difficult to become an astronaut. It's like 0.0001%. And every person that is going through astronaut training is some of the brightest, most hardworking, most talented people that you will ever meet. But the chance of them actually becoming an astronaut is tiny, tiny. So when it's that fiercely competitive, luck plays an even bigger role in the outcome. It's 85.6%. The chance of you becoming an astronaut is almost all because of that you are lucky amongst a group of people that are highly motivated, highly talented, and very, very hardworking. So this is a big takeaway here. That outcomes that we are all interested, the positive outcomes, are a combination of skill and luck. What we look at here is on the left, my left here, is what we consider the skill surface area. And on the right of it is what we consider the luck surface area. And the combination of those two surface areas will define your outcomes. And what I'm going to stress in the next few slides here is that this is also the edge. If you understand this, it gives you an edge because most people ignore the luck surface area. They focus all of their attention on the skill surface area. And this is the secret sauce to our family office, and I'm sharing it with everybody here, is that we spend an enormous amount of time trying to understand the luck surface area. And a big piece of doing that from an internal perspective, you have to have humility, and you have to be humble enough to understand the relevance of luck. And that's the catch. Without it, you're never going to look at it. And therefore, you're never going to understand how much it impacts your outcomes, and you're never going to factor that in. So this is when I kind of get asked, okay, how do we do this? And then I'm going to get into like a specific example, because after this particular slide, I always get asked the question, okay, this sounds interesting, but give me a real example of how this works, right? So as I mentioned, in the family office as an investment team, we spend a lot of time looking at this luck surface area. And we try to model the impact of this interrelationship or duality between skill and luck. What does the skill surface area look like? How does it behave? What does the luck surface area look like? How does it behave? How is it correlated with each other as we look at the outcomes that we would like to produce in the future? And so we spend a lot of time modeling it. And I can tell you from my personal experience that this modeling is very, very time consuming. Very, very time consuming. It normally would take us months to develop the algorithm, to actually model the algorithm, to change the factors and the parameters, to rerun the simulation again, mess with the model some more. This is a very, very time consuming process. AI has jump-started that process by 1,000-fold. We still need to produce the algorithms and understand the specifics of the model that we want to produce, but AI has given us a huge leg up in our ability not only to develop these models, but also iterate through these models. And the reason that is what we're trying to model is our stochastic processes, the processes that define luck, okay, the random occurrences that define luck. And human beings are not very good at doing this, and that's why it took us a long time to try to figure out what parameters worked and what didn't. We're just terrible at thinking about random events and the impact of random events, which means we're terrible at understanding the impact of luck. AI and large language models are built on a stochastic foundation. So they're exceptionally good at modeling this. They're exceptionally good at understanding this. And that's allowed us to iterate through these models at a much higher velocity than we were able to do before. All right, so this is the part where, okay, this sounds interesting, okay, but like, what is the actual implementation of this, and then what are the results? So I'm gonna cover both of these. So as a family, we're very, very active in the venture capital space, and we became more active starting in 2017. We have a very high velocity strategy. We invest in a lot of funds, so we're very, very active in venture capital. So one of the things that we realized is this particular outcome. So we have doubled down, and our strategy is filled with fund ones. These are fund managers that don't have a track record typically. These are fund managers that are first-time fund managers in many, many cases. So this is not just emerging managers. These are actually fund ones that are in our portfolio. And if you think about fund ones, most investors will not invest in fund ones. They consider them too risky. They don't typically have a track record. And this is in the US. I think it's much worse here in Latin America with fund ones. I mean, US investors typically shy away from fund ones because they consider them too risky. I know, based on my conversations here in Latin America, that that's probably more so here, okay? Fund ones are extremely valuable for venture investors. And the reason is they have the highest luck surface area. Fund ones have, I'm going to repeat that. Fund ones have the highest luck surface area. And that surface area, that luck surface area, decays over time. And it has to be made up by skill. And you need more skill than you need luck to make up for the loss in luck. So you need a lot of skill to make up for the luck that is going to go away as you go from Fund 1 to Fund 2 to Fund 3 to Fund 4. And that has all to do with the math piece of it. And I just talked about in highly competitive environments, luck is crucial to outcomes. So why do you want to invest in Fund 1s? You need to look and make sure that they have the talent and the skill and the hard work. That's a given. But you want high luck surface area. And you're going to get that in Fund 1s. So what do our results look like? So as I pointed out, that we started very, very actively investing in venture capital starting in 2017. Since then, we have $49 billion companies in our portfolio, and we've added a new billion-dollar company every other month in the portfolio. Half of our portfolio are Fund 1s, and half of those billion-dollar companies came from Fund 1s. Okay, so let's talk about kindness. So why is kindness important? Because it's the flywheel for luck. It allows others to get lucky. It's the relationships, it's the networking, it's the mentorship. It's all of those things. You have to have kindness to make luck work. And think about that in your own lives. Did you have a mentor? Did you have a good teacher? Did you have your parents, your friends, your other family members, your business colleagues, your business associates? All those external factors. Kindness makes all that work. It builds your relationships. It builds your network. It turbocharges luck. It allows you and others to get lucky. Because everybody here, you're all here because you've got talent and you've worked exceptionally hard. But let me tell you, you've had some luck too. All of us have. Okay, so this is my final slide, and this is a challenge for everybody here. I mean, what I've noticed is in Latin America, you've got kindness in spades. I mean, the ecosystem here and the culture here is built on a foundation of kindness. You've definitely got hard work covered. This is some of the most hardworking cultures that you'll find anywhere else. Talent, it's everywhere, everywhere. So what's missing? What's missing in finding ways to improve the luck of others? It's the other external factors like infrastructure. It's the schools, it's the roads, it's clean water, it's clean air, it's all that infrastructure that needs to be put in place to allow others to get lucky. Because you've got the other ones. You've got hard work. You've got kindness. You've got talent. Help with the schools. Help with the infrastructure. Help others get lucky. Thank you very much, everyone.